Today, I'm creating the strongest pirate crew in One Piece, and this crew has to be powerful enough to defeat even the Rocks Pirates and Emu, while also being capable of finding the One Piece. We're going to add a total of 10 members to this crew, but before we choose any crew members, we need a ship, because without a great ship, you won't get very far in the Grand Line, and we definitely don't want a repeat of what happened to the Going Merry. Oda-sensei really made us cry over a ship. Right now, we have 3 options for our crew's ship: Roger's Oro Jackson, the Big Mom Pirate's ship, and the Thousand Sunny. Now, Big Mom's ship is only impressive because of Big Mom's powers. Take those powers away, and it's basically just a giant floating bed. So that's out. If our goal is to find the One Piece, what ship could possibly be better than the Oro Jackson? Roger already found the One Piece using it, and the Oro Jackson was built from Atom wood, the strongest wood in the world. But even if the Thousand Sunny isn't 1,000 times better than the Oro Jackson, it is still better in some ways. It's built from the same atom wood, but with much more advanced technology. There's even a theory that the Sunny is connected to an ancient weapon because both Frankie and Augsburg built it, and both of them had seen the blueprints of Pluton. It's one of the best ships in the entire world. It can even fly, and it gives the crew a reliable escape option when things go wrong. So our ship has been selected, the Thousand Sunny. Now we need our first pirate, someone who can take the Sunny anywhere in the world. We need a helmsman. The problem is that there aren't many great helmsmen in One Piece. There are only a handful of notable ones. Our first option is Hakugan from the Heart Pirates. We already know that besides Law, most of the Heart Pirates don't really stand out. To be honest, before making this video, I didn't even know his name, and I'm sure most of you didn't either. So we're definitely not choosing him. Other options include Jesus Burgess from the Blackbeard Pirates and Jinbei from the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, it's hard to say which one is stronger, because Jesus Burgess recently got the Riki Riki no Mi, a devil fruit that grants incredible physical strength. But we haven't even talked about the best candidate yet, Shiki the Golden Lion. For those who don't know, Shiki wasn't just a captain, he was also the helmsman of his own crew. On paper, he would be the perfect choice. The problem is that we're trying to build a crew stronger than the Rocks Pirates, and Shiki was already a member of the Rocks Pirates, so we can't use him. That leaves us with Jinbei, and that's who we're choosing for the role of helmsman. Now, helmsman role is important. The doctor role is even more important. Doctor, we have 3 choices: Chopper, Law, Marco. Sure, we could also pick Roger's doctor, but physically, he doesn't compare to these 3. First, we have our lovable Chopper. He's an amazing doctor and is trying to become the greatest doctor in the world. But while he's an incredible doctor, he isn't nearly as impressive in combat compared to the others. So the real competition is between Law and Marco. To figure out who's stronger, we have to look at their battles and accomplishments. Marco might actually be slightly stronger than Law in a straight fight. But when it comes to being a doctor, Law is clearly better. We've already seen this during Marineford, when Law treated Luffy and saved his life. Most importantly, Law possesses the Ope Ope no Mi, which allows him to perform the immortality surgery. That means someone could become immortal and only die from truly devastating circumstances. So does that make Law the doctor of our crew? No, because nobody's going to perform complicated surgeries in the middle of a battlefield. Marco is extremely powerful, and thanks to his Phoenix abilities, he can heal others while fighting. For this crew, Marco is the better overall choice, so the role of doctor goes to Marco the Phoenix. Now remember, this crew has 2 goals: defeat the Rocks Pirates, find the One Piece. To achieve that, we need an archaeologist. Our options are Clover, Pudding, Robin, and Kozuki Oden. Clover was originally a pirate before becoming a scholar, but the problem is he's far too weak. Pudding is another option, but to read the ancient language reliably, she would need to awaken her special abilities, and the chances of that are pretty low. On top of that, she isn't very strong either. That brings us to the world's most famous archaeologist, Nico Robin. Robin doesn't have the weakness problem. Her devil fruit makes her surprisingly powerful, and she would be a fantastic choice. But how can we forget Kozuki Oden? Oden possessed strength comparable to a Yonko-level fighter. Even Kaido respected him. Most importantly, Oden could both read and write the ancient language. So for the role of archaeologist, we're choosing Kozuki Oden. Now, at this point, almost everyone in our crew is a close-range fighter. So to balance things out, we need a sniper. And when it comes to snipers, how can we forget the legendary father-son duo, Usopp and Yasopp? Both Usopp and Yasopp are amazing snipers, but there are still many other great snipers in One Piece. For example, there's Charlotte Bascart from the Big Mom Pirates. Instead of using normal guns, he uses special projectiles and can hit multiple targets at once. When talking about snipers, range is one of the most important factors. That's where Van Augur from the Blackbeard Pirates comes in. Helmsman. He was able to hit targets from over 10 kilometers away. And after the time skip, he's become even more dangerous because he now has the warp fruit, allowing him to teleport wherever he can see. We also shouldn't forget characters like Izo, who was an incredible marksman as well. But in the end, there are really only two candidates for this role, Yasopp and Van Augur. Personally, I believe Yasopp is stronger. First of all, he's one of the commanders of the Red Hair Pirates, which already puts him on another level. So the sniper position goes to Yasopp. Now, the Grand Line isn't exactly a small place, so for such a long journey, every crew needs a cook. We could choose Strozen from the Big Mom Pirates, but let's be honest, he's way too weak. That brings us to the world's greatest and most handsome cook, Sanji. Sanji can cook practically any dish imaginable, and unlike many chefs, he never wastes food. After awakening his Germa abilities in Wano, Sanji became much stronger and unlocked several new powers. He's now strong enough to easily defeat a Yonko commander's level opponent, as we saw when he defeated Queen. Now, there is another cook we could consider, Lucky Roo. At first, I wanted to give this role to Lucky Roo because he's a member of the Red Hair Pirates, but after Wano, Sanji has simply become too powerful. He's tanking attacks from Seraphim like they're nothing, and isn't even bothered afterward. He can even block Kizaru's laser attacks. Meanwhile, Lucky Roo's true strength is still mostly unknown, so the cook position goes to Sanji. Now, the Grand Line is dangerous for everyone, and while the role of shipwright isn't common in most pirate crews, we have one obvious choice, Franky. And don't think Franky is a weak pick. Franky is actually an incredible choice. He's a genius engineer and a very powerful fighter at the same time. So the shipwright role goes to Franky. No matter how powerful a crew is, it can never survive without a navigator. And of course, the greatest navigator in the world is Zoro. Just kidding. The best navigator is obviously Nami. The only problem is that Nami is physically much weaker than the rest of this crew. So if we're trying to build the strongest crew possible, we need a navigator who is also powerful. That's where Luffy from the Blackbeard Pirates comes in. We don't know much about his powers. We can assume he's extremely dangerous because during the Warlord meeting, he managed to sneak into a room full of powerful people without anyone noticing. So the navigator role goes to Lafitte. Now, Grand Line journeys are very long, so we also need a musician to keep the crew's morale high. Scratchman Apu might seem like a decent choice. He even managed to land successful attacks on Kizaru, but later we find out that his powers aren't nearly as impressive as they seem. You can literally counter many of his attacks by covering your ears. Our second option is Brook. Brook is strong, but not nearly strong enough for a crew of this level. Honestly, both of these choices feel too weak. That's why I'm giving the musician role to Monster, the monkey from the Red Hair Pirates. So the musician role goes to Monster. Now there are only two positions left, Vice Captain and Captain. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because every week there's a new One Piece video here, and these videos take a lot of effort to make. Now, let's talk about the Vice Captain. What's wrong with the current Vice Captain, Zoro? Nothing, actually. In the future, Roronoa Zoro will probably become the strongest Vice Captain ever, because he's going to defeat Mihawk and become the world's strongest swordsman. But right now, he hasn't defeated Mihawk yet. So, he doesn't make the cut. If we're talking about the strongest current vice captains, then Ben Beckman is an obvious choice. Many people say he's close to Shanks in strength. He's so respected that even Kizaru paid attention when Beckman pointed a gun at him. But we don't even need to imagine how strong Beckman is, because we have someone who's even stronger. Silver's Rayleigh. I consider Rayleigh the strongest vice captain in One Piece history. And if you don't believe me, go watch my top 10 vice captains video. So, the vice captain position goes to Silver's Rayleigh. Now it's finally time to choose the captain. Why not just pick Monkey D. Luffy? Luffy is incredibly powerful. His haki is advanced, and Gear 5 gives him almost limitless possibilities. His biggest weakness is stamina. And I'm not saying Luffy's haki is weak. His haki is insanely strong, but it isn't the strongest. For the captain position, we need the strongest haki user possible. We already selected Rayleigh as vice captain, so why not choose Roger? Well, there is one man whose haki might be even stronger. Shanks. Shanks' haki has been compared to Joy Boy's haki, and not just in one category. In every form of haki, Shanks stands at the very top. So the captain position goes to red-haired Shanks. I'm pretty sure this crew would find the One Piece, but do you think they could defeat the Rocks Pirates? Let me know in the comments. And yes, there is one person who could probably find the One Piece completely alone, Lord Usopp.